Sometimes it is felt almost physically. You are sitting in a room, looking out the window, hearing a car somewhere far away, someone talking behind the wall, the refrigerator making its steady, meaningless noise. Everything seems to be in place. You are here. Your body is here. Your breathing is here. But inside there is as if a small shift. As if you do not fully coincide with this moment. As if you are looking at your life through thin glass, and this glass never disappears. It does not prevent you from seeing. It prevents you from being. You can remember this feeling from childhood, when you were sitting in class and suddenly caught yourself looking out the window and thinking about something completely different. Your body was in the classroom. You were not. Then it became a habit. Then it became a way of existing. Then you stopped noticing the difference. We almost never ask ourselves this question directly. We say, I am tired, or I am bored, or I need to distract myself. But if we are honest, behind all this there is something stranger and more disturbing. We are almost never where we are. My name is Eli, and I think a lot about things people usually try not to think about. And if you know this feeling, that life seems to pass a little bit past you, that you are all the time either remembering or planning or chewing over some inner dialogues. And even in good moments there is a light, almost imperceptible detachment inside. Then most likely you have already been living not in the present for a long time. Like all of us, the strangest thing is that we are constantly taught to return to the moment, as if this is some forgotten skill, as if somewhere inside there is a button you can press, and you will suddenly begin to live for real, completely, fully, without background noise, without this inner echo. But here is what almost no one says out loud. A human being has never lived in the present. Even in those times when there were no phones, no clocks, no calendars, no plans 5 years ahead. Even then, human consciousness was arranged in the same way as it is now. It was always a little bit not here. Because consciousness is not just perception. It is a time machine. You look at a tree and at the same time remember other trees. Think about how they look in autumn, or about how in childhood you climbed their branches, or about the fact that you need to go somewhere. You never simply see a tree. You always see it through a layer of thoughts. Even when you feel pain or pleasure, you almost immediately begin to interpret it. This is good. This is bad. Will this last long? Why is this happening to me? What does this mean? And at this moment you are no longer in the sensation. You are in the story about the sensation. Consciousness does not know how to be silent. It is always telling a story. And here the first illusion appears. It seems to us that if we stop thinking, we will finally begin to live. But if you imagine this honestly, it becomes a little frightening. Because if you really stop thinking, comparing, remembering, and expecting, then you will stop being the one you call yourself. You will turn into pure perception, into a flow, into something that has no biography and no plans. A human being cannot live in such a state for long. He comes back. He begins to think again. Because to think is exactly what it means to be human. And here the quietest tragedy begins. We are arranged in such a way that we are always a little absent from our own life. We are always either a little earlier or a little later. We are either preparing or remembering. We are almost never simply here. Try to notice this in small things. You walk down the street and think about what will happen in the evening. You sit with someone and part of you is scrolling through a past conversation or a future one. Even when you are resting, you think about the fact that soon you will have to do something again. We live in a mode of constant inner commentary. And the strangest thing is that we consider this normal. Moreover, we consider it useful. After all, this is what allows us to plan, to avoid dangers, to build projects, to dream, to change life. And this is true. Without this, a human being would not survive. But there is also the other side. Because very imperceptibly all of life turns into preparation for life. You study in order to live later. You work in order to live later. You endure in order to live later. You postpone joy, calm, rest, confidence for some later that is always a little bit moved away. And here a feeling appears that is familiar to almost everyone, but that few people formulate. The feeling that real life has not yet begun. As if you are always standing in a corridor, or in an anteroom, or in a waiting room. And the strangest thing is that you can live like this for decades. You can look back and see a long chain of preparations. Preparation for exams, preparation for work, preparation for moving, preparation for a normal life. And at some point you suddenly realize that all this was life. You just never settled into it. We like to say, when I finish this project, I will breathe out. When I earn enough, I will start living. When I figure it out, it will become easier. But if you honestly look at the experience of your own life, it becomes clear every time after this when there follows a new win. And this is not because you are always choosing the wrong goals. It is because the psyche is arranged this way. It does not know how to stop. It is always looking for the next point. And here the second illusion begins. It seems to us that if we reach the right state, then we will finally live in the present, become calmer, more whole, more confident, freer. But look at people who, it would seem, have already achieved it. They get new fears, new tasks, new doubts, a new background of anxiety, a new level of restlessness. The human psyche is not created for the finish line. It is created for movement. And here a very unpleasant thought appears. Perhaps we never lived in the present not because we are doing something wrong, but because otherwise we simply do not know how. We are creatures that live in displacement. Part of us is always in the past, in memories, in mistakes, in shame, in nostalgia, in words that were not said. Part of us is always in the future, in expectations, in fears, in hopes, in plans, in scenarios. And the present is a thin, almost imperceptible line between them, which immediately turns either into memory or into expectation. You cannot hold it. You can notice this in the simplest things. You drink tea and think about something. You listen to music and inside your own film is playing. You talk to a person and part of you is already preparing an answer or remembering something else. We are almost never completely where we are. And here many begin to fight with themselves. They say, I need to be more mindful. I need to return to the moment. I need to learn to be present. Sometimes this really gives strange, almost magical sensations. For a few seconds or minutes, the inner noise subsides. The world becomes brighter, denser, more real. But these states do not last. And this is not because you are not trying hard enough. It is because your mind is not created for constant silence. It is created for story, for comparison, for movement in time. And here a more honest and more difficult question arises. Not, why am I not living in the present? But why is it so unbearable for me to be where I am? Because if we are completely honest, the present is not always pleasant. In the present, there is boredom. There are empty gaps. There is a feeling of meaninglessness. There is anxiety without a clear object. There is fatigue. There is uncertainty. In the present, there is no plot, no explanations, no beautiful form. And that is why we run away so willingly. Into phones, into conversations, into fantasies, into plans, into memories, into series, into work, into any forms of inner or outer noise. Not because we are bad or weak, but because staying alone with what is very difficult. There you meet not the idea of yourself, but yourself. Tired, doubting, not fully understanding why all this is. And here one more very subtle thing appears. We often think that living in the present means feeling more joy, but most often it means feeling more of what we usually run away from. Silence, emptiness, incompleteness, waiting without guarantee. And that is why so many people live as if a little bit to the side of their own life, as if they are always commenting on it, but not living it. But perhaps the strangest and most honest thought is something else. Perhaps we cannot live in the present not by mistake, but by design. Perhaps a human being is a creature that always lives in between what was and what will be, between who he was and who he hopes to become, between what he feels and how he explains it. And perhaps expecting full presence from yourself is like expecting a river to stop. And here a quiet shift happens. Perhaps the question is not how to learn to live in the present, but how to stop fighting the fact that you are always a little bit not here. How to stop demanding from yourself an impossible state. How to stop postponing life until the moment when you finally become calm enough, confident enough, ready enough. Because that moment will not come. And this is not a tragedy. It is simply a form of existence. You will always be a little bit on the way, a little bit in the past, a little bit in the future, a little bit in thoughts, a little bit in memories, a little bit in expectations. And perhaps the only thing that is really available to you is sometimes to notice, right now I am not here again. And in this noticing there is a strange, quiet honesty. Because perhaps to be human means to be a little bit absent all the time, and still to go on living, without waiting for the moment when you will finally be completely in the present. Because that moment never existed, and most likely it never will. And perhaps this is exactly the most human form of life.